so do you understand, a part of our philosophy, we don't believe in passing a plate. No, what we have found is that it's still, this giving thing, a heart issue. It's a heart issue. Now, again, I think it's a fine thing you pass a plate, but what's happening in the heart? Is this something where you see the tithe increase if there's a large elder standing over someone as the plate is passed, you know, and he gives a little longer look, waiting for a bigger denomination? No. What happens is, of course, whether it's a pass in the aisle or a bucket in the back, you as a pastor are wanting this thing to come from the heart. Here's the problem. The heart is attached to a head. And the head is not thinking the way the Bible teaches us to think. So what ends up happening is that most of our folks find themselves with a heart attached to their head, tipping God. And as they reach in their pocket and see whatever bill comes first, all right, here's a $5 for God today. Oh, you said you want me to tithe. Oh, here's $10 then. That one's for God. And you're thinking, I don't know that they understand this. So we, as pastors, got to help their heart by many times ministering to their head. I'll start this study by sharing some statistics, and I really hope this helps. I hope it helps you as pastors get a handle on your congregation's hurts and their holdings, their stuff and their struggles, their possessions and their problems. But in order to illustrate this to you, I'm going to have to reduce the size of the entire world's population to just 100 people. So imagine that with me. We take the entire world's population, we reduce it to just 100 people. Now, 100 people, I know how many seats are in the front, I know how many aisles back, so we're going to look at this group right here. 100 people now represent the total population on the planet. Well, who do we have here? Well, I find it interesting. We have 70 people who do not know Jesus Christ. 30 of them do. But more don't know the Lord than do know the Lord. We have 30 white people. 70 of them are some other flavor, some other color. When it comes to gender, we have 51 women. We have 49 men. And that's why some of you as pastors know there are some sisters in the fellowship that can't find a guy. They can't. They never will. There's not enough to go around. Now, it's just that's just a little extra information. You can just take note of that. Here's what else you'll find. Out of that 100 people, 80 of them live in substandard housing. Now, what does that mean? That means that they don't have either running water, electricity, or a solid roof over their head. 80 of them live in substandard housing. Listen to this. 50 of them are malnourished. 50 of them will not have 3 squares. No, 50 of them will have a meal maybe daily, but what they're getting in the way of food does not satisfy the need to be nourished. 70 of them can't read at all. One of them is dying as I speak. And that one that's dying represents a part of the population, a little kid under the age of 10 that is dying every second. Why? Because they just don't have enough food. Now, 6 of these 100 people have over half of all the world's wealth. And those 6 people live in the United States of America. Listen again. 6 people out of the 100 have over half of all of the world's wealth. Now, if you're in that 100 group and you represent the dad of the boy that's dying, do you think it's reasonable for you to look across the aisle and see the one who has so much money and say, hey, is there a possibility you could help my family eat? What does this person with all the wealth do? Well, right now, if he's living in the United States of America, he's fairly preoccupied with all he's doing with all his wealth. What is he doing with all his wealth? Well, imagine with me a large dollar bill, not too hard for you to imagine. Why? This represents how America spends its money. How does America spend its money? Well, let's take a part of that dollar bill and see where 24% of it goes. 24% of it is going to be for your house. It's your comfort. It's not just your house mortgage payment. No, this is also going to service the maintenance side of how you live your life. So if you have a pool, this is, of course, going to cover the chlorine. If you've got a lawn, this is going to, of course, make sure that lawnmower is purring nicely. Now, what else are you going to do with the dollar? Watch this. 19% is going to go into the health care category. And that's your insurance payment. That's you making sure your prescriptions are paid for. You're going to spend that kind of money on NyQuil and cough drops, whatever other remedies you need. That's how you're going to spend 19% of your money. Then we come over here to your recreation and personal needs. 22% of your dollar is going to go to your pleasure, the things you really feel are important in life to do. And then watch this. We've got 15% on our stomach. House, health, stuff, stomach. Now, we still have a little left. That's 17%. That's your ride. That's what you drive. And that's not to make sure you have a good ride, but that's also to make sure that that car has insurance. Now, do we have anything left at all to give the guy whose son is dying? Well, that's the question, isn't it? Here's why. And this is sad. I'm going to turn to him and say, I think your kid's going to have to die. And the reason why? Well, this is something I'm not really sure what to do about. On the one hand, you know, if I'm a heathen and I really don't know God, I'll give 2% to something that looks like it might help your kid, but it might not. If I'm a Christian, I'll give a whopping 3% to help your kid. I'm not sure if it will, maybe. Now, does he need 2%, 3%? I think he might need a little more help. But you see, you've already obligated all of these spots on your dollar, and you've already determined that that's the way America lives. No, I'm sorry. It's worse than that. You see, so many in your church have a hard time giving even 2, 3%. And you know why? Listen to this. This wasn't enough. It's not enough for our government, and it's not enough for your people. So what ends up happening is the United States government hears your cry. I need help with my health care. And what do? Decide to assist you funding it. So last year, calendar year 2004, our United States government borrowed $665 billion. They borrowed that. Now, in 1791, our national debt was $75 million. Do you know that right now it goes up that amount every hour? So that we spend $1.66 billion every day. $665 billion this year of money we don't have. That's the United States government going to foreign lenders, borrowing money because they're trying to balance the gap that lies between payments due and receipts from. We're stuck. But that's not just the government. No, this is a Wall Street Journal article from Friday, April the 29th, 2005. It says, climbing out of debt step by step, consumers owe $2.1 trillion at the end of 2004. $2.1 trillion. Do you know what that means? That means for every man, woman, and child in the United States of America, if you take our national debt at $7 trillion and our consumer debt at $2.1 trillion, next thing you know, you got every person on the planet owing large amounts of money in the United States of America, and we're the ones that have it all. There's something wrong with that picture. And what's worse about that picture is that I don't know when it stops. In other words, you take that $665 billion this year, Right now, you compare it to the money that's coming in, the money that we're borrowing, the money that's coming in. It's 24% of our gross domestic product. Now, you don't change that, and they submit that by 2014, we will actually owe 64%. We'll owe we're borrowing so much more than we're actually earning, that what ends up happening? Well, here's what will happen. This country will go bankrupt. Why? 64%. You look at the entire world's population. Look at all the different countries. We get that far, and we will be third on the list of those countries in serious condition financially. It's some of this kind of information that caused me to scratch my head and say, wait a second. You mean to tell me that our people, I mean the people at Calvary Chapel, Fort Lauderdale, that most of them, and I'm going to underline that most of them are actually in serious financial trouble. They're upside down in their car. They're upside down, some of them, in their life. They don't have anything that looks like a budget. They don't have any plan. Anyone who had home equity in their loan, home equity in their home, if they had any at all, in the last 2 years, with all the MoneyTreeLending.com and all the DieTech.com, they took the one nest egg they had and they borrowed on their home to be able to pay off bills from the consumer debt because they didn't have enough, even in light of everything they had. So now, not only do they not have a nest egg, they're going to get to be 65, 70 years old. They're going to come to the church and say, hey, I'm really in a tough need, and I have no plan for the next 20 years of my life. And you will say, as a pastor, I have no plan for the next 20 years of this. Well, and what happens? What happens? Well, I share all these numbers and I share all this information to kind of tell you what happened in me and us and our church here at Calvary Chapel, Fort Lauderdale. Why? Well, because once you're made aware of just a little of this information, you stop for a second and say, oh, wait, help me out again. And here's how you might write it down. 1, your church is in financial trouble. Now, if you say they're not, you don't know then that they are. And I don't know what's worse. I don't know if it's worse to actually believe that they're not when they are, or know that they are and do nothing about it. But I'm here to tell you, your church is in financial trouble. Why? There's not much difference at all between this dollar in the pocket of most Americans and the same dollar that your congregation carries. What I'm concerned about is how much this dollar looks like the dollar that's in your pocket, Pastor. So, 1, again, church, your people in serious financial trouble. 2, the world has great need. You know that it costs to fund this thing called the gospel. And if you and I believe that it's the most important information we can provide, there is a need to fund the mission of the church, and at the same time, no one has any money because of the way that we've handled God's resources. 3, and this is, I think, where there's a rub in my own heart. God can't reward bad behavior. You can't expect your church to say, spending money this way, hey, God, we need more. And God, in his wisdom, oh, I didn't know you needed more. Let me just forsake all the rest of the world's needs and continue to give your church, even though financially your congregation's an embarrassment. You can't expect him to bless unblessable behavior. So, 4, Pastor, teaching on finances is your responsibility. You say, I don't think I needed to write that down, Bob. No. I really think some of us do need to write that down. Here's why. I'm a Calvary guy. It means I'm an expositional guy. It means I like to go verse by verse and chapter by chapter. I'm the kind of guy that doesn't want to make anyone feel obligated. I make a big deal about the fact we don't have any membership. And because there was buckets in the back, people begin to assume that we're the church where you don't have to give. Oh man, I love Calvary. It's a church you don't have to give. Wait a minute, I don't think we ever said that. Well, you never talk about money, and because you never talk about money, and because we don't even feel an obligation. Well, we do talk about money, but we try and talk about it in such a way that it's so, non-threatening and so friendly and so kind of, I just don't want to make anyone feel like my motivation, could be misunderstood, and don't want to embarrass anyone, and don't want to make anyone feel awkward. Are you serious? What do you think is more awkward? Somebody who's been in your church 10, 15 years, sitting in a congregation, and have you open your heart, hear a tone of breaking, as our congregation heard mine, and I had to basically confess and say, you know what? For a lot of years, I taught on giving, but I must apologize to you as a church. I've never taught on stewardship. You mean to tell me there's a difference? Oh, Andy mentioned having a 4 CD or 4 DVD series. I have one as well. And let me just say, you could pick it up right now in the bookstore, and it's available. No. But here's what I find interesting. I did a 4-part series on giving about 6 years ago. Last year, I did a 4-part series on stewardship, and you know what? They're very different studies. Why? Well, in my giving series, I focused on this 3% becoming 10. That was my focus. Since my experience at Generous Giving, I focused on this entire dollar bill belonging to God. And there's a big difference between the two. The difference is, once you really surrender your life, the whole enchilada, what ends up happening? Well, God begins to have your whole life. And now, the change in effect that takes place is powerful in the life of the congregation. Why? They understand. In the same way they've been giving God, what, an hour, 2 hours here at the church on a weekend? I give God my Sunday for a couple hours. I hope to be slightly entertained, and then I leave. No, it's your life. Well, I don't know, it's my life. You see, certainly that little chunk of cardboard doesn't look like my life. Yeah, and that's maybe where we went wrong, right? What we did is give you the impression that if you only give God little pieces for church and little pieces of finance, that, man, you're saved. What part of you is saved? The hour you redeem on Sunday morning and the 2 or 3% you give out of your income? I don't know that it looks like the whole of you. Why? Because the whole of this still doesn't look redeemed. There's still a problem here. So what should we in fact do? Well, you've heard the theme of the conference. We're going to preach and teach and celebrate and apply. They asked me to talk about celebration. And when I thought about that celebration word, I had to think about how we celebrate here at Calvary Chapel our stewardship. What I realized, if I go back 10 years, I don't know that we did much celebrating in stewardship because, again, I was focusing on giving the 10%, not being a steward of the 100. And that's what changed in my heart. You see, you never know how you get invited to speak to some of these things. And what you'll find in going back a couple of years ago, I was on a list. Somebody contacted me. There's this group called Generous Giving, and like Michael Easley, never really heard of Generous Giving. And I thought, oh, interesting invite. Where is it at? Oh, Orlando. Oh, I'll be speaking with, Kay Arthur, I love Kay. Oh, Chip Ingram, that's an honor. Oh, I get to talk with, and I thought, this is a great opportunity. Teach on giving. So I wrote real, neat notes and made sure good illustrations. I'm going to go to Orlando and speak on giving. That's my job. Okay, I'm ready. So I go to Orlando and I sit down, and what happens at this Generous Giving conference? I see a few of the videos like the ones you just saw. And a very stately industrialist takes the podium. His name is Stanley Tam. He begins to share his heart about how he's purposed to live on little to begin and to accomplish giving away much. And I discover that this guy, in giving his business to God, now well into his 80s, has been responsible in giving over $100 million to mission work in China. Now, what he did was he capped his salary and he just started giving away and giving away and giving away. Well, again, I'm supposed to be a speaker there. And now the speaker's thinking, I shouldn't speak. Why? The conference is Generous Giving, and I happen to be a tickled tither. Now, there's a difference between the two. A tickled tither is one who has given his tithe and he's tickled about it because he's doing everything he knows God wants him to do. And I've been a tickled tither for a long time. Ask me about my giving record. I'm a tickled tither. But a generous giver is somebody who basically takes it and says, it's all yours, God. And when I realized, wait a second, you mean to tell me if I don't encourage our congregation to give, they're going to end up on the other side, and Jesus is going to hand them reward, and they'll be rewarded for what they gave. And now there they are. This is great. Why didn't I know about this? Is this really what I get up here? And here's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned that Peter's going to be close by, or somebody, Michael, somebody go, well, did you not understand the whole 10%, 100%? No, I didn't. My pastor had buckets in the back, and he just said, you don't have to give. We just never saw it as a priority. Well, if that's what your pastor told you, I guess, and here's what'll happen. Where is he? You get over here. I'll be running around heaven, hiding from my congregation. All of them holding these things up in their hand. Get over here. No. Why? Because if I do this alone, so I have this up in heaven, and there they have this. There they are, and there I am. Bob, why didn't you tell me? Well, something I knew. Something I've always been doing. I've done this for all my life. You didn't know about this? Oh, that's right. Well, I didn't want to offend you. Oh. Here's what they'll say. They'll say this. Please offend me. Please bother me. Please bug me about this. Please, Bob. Why? Because I didn't know this would be it forever.